everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today we are doing my May wrap up. This is going to be a pretty quick video because I only read 7 books and 3 of those books I read for a video and that vlog isn't ready to go up yet, so obviously I don't want to spoil my feelings, so you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for that. So the very first book that I read in the month of May was Before They Are Hanged by Jo Abercrombie. So this is the second book in the First Law trilogy, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. So this series mainly follows 3 points of views. We have Glocta, who was once one of the finest soldiers in the army, but then he got captured, tortured, and now he himself is a torturer. Then we follow Giselle, who is kind of an up-and-coming soldier. He is part of the nobility. He kind of has never had to work for anything, and he is training for this sword fight. And then we follow Logan, who comes from the north, and along his journey he comes across a wizard, and the two of them head towards the city that the other 2 characters live in. It's not really connecting to this story. I can see why people like it, but it just isn't really gripping me at all. So I think if you really like the characters, you'll like the book, but I don't really care that much about any of them. Like, there's a couple that interest me, but just not enough to get me really liking the story. And I just feel like we don't have a very clear direction on where the actual point of the story is. Yeah, it just feels like we don't really know where we're going at this point of the story, and it just kind of feels like, what was the point of this book? They were journeying the whole time, and at the end we're basically still at this exact same place as where we started. So I just think that this definitely was a bit of middle book syndrome. And even though I usually I love political fantasies and stuff, Glocta's point of view, which was more political in this, I just really didn't care. I just had no interest. And since I read this for the Catch Up Book Club, I was for the last series they did, which is around with Elrings, I had my notes app open and I was taking notes of things that I thought were important or just things that I really loved, and I just don't care enough to do that with this. I'm just reading along and I'm hoping that everything will make sense in the end, but I'm not actually putting the effort to try and put things together, if that makes sense. So I think that's just a real indicator that I just don't care that much. Number 2 that I read was A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. So this is book 1 in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. So this was a 4 stars, but it was a pretty low 4 stars. This was not on my TBR, I would also like to point out, and yet I read it anyway. And I buddy read it. This is with Emma. I think Emma gave it a high 3 stars. So I enjoy this. Obviously I give it a 4 stars, but as I said, it was a bit of a lower 4 stars. And I think what kept it above the 3 was the writing style. It was quite charming. So the series follows Lady Trent, and she has decided to write her memoirs because she's an older lady and she has been on so many adventures, and people have been asking her for years to tell the complete stories of these adventures, because everything else has kind of been scientific about the history of dragons and the study of them. So she writes down her story starting with the very first kind of expedition that she went on, and I liked this. I didn't love it, and I think I own the second book now. It's right there. And I do think maybe as the series goes on and I come to really like and love her as a character, I could definitely give higher ratings and love this series more. But I just didn't really connect to her in this one. It's not to say that I disliked her or anything, that's not true. I just didn't really care either way. As I said, I liked her because I liked her narration style. She's very charming and witty, and she just doesn't really care what people think of her at this stage of her life, and so that was really fun to read. I didn't really connect to her, and then when bad things were happening, I just didn't feel anything. And that's at the end of the book, something happens and I was I should feel something, but I don't. And then the chapter after that is kind of nearly a reflection on it, and I found that one was definitely sadder to me, the reflection on it, and as opposed to it actually happening. But I feel I should feel sadness at both parts, if that makes sense. I'm trying not to spoil. Always go on about how I'm characters and world building, and this book didn't do anything really extremely special about any of them. And the plot also, but I don't really need a big plot. And there was a plot, it took a bit to get going, but it was intriguing once we kind of got to this like other place and we were like learning about the dragons and all that. That was intriguing, but as I said, it took a while to get there. And then the world building, it isn't actually set in like our world, though it feels like it is. So I just kind of like spent a lot of the book being like, I don't understand why you decided to make a different world, because it is so clearly mirroring like historical like England and all of that. And but like, she is an anthropologist, and I know that the world building in the series that she co-wrote, which is The Rook and the Rose, which starts with the Mask of Mirrors, I love that series. Like, the world building that is insane. So I'm kind of hopeful that in like the second book, as we explore different places of the world, it's going to become very much different from like real world. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for, and that we'll see some like really incredible well thought out world building, because as I said, I know that she has been a part of some really great world building before, so I'm hopeful that that will also be enhance my enjoyment as the series goes on, as well as hopefully I'll enjoy Isabella as we go on and on and on. And as I said, the main thing that like gave it the 4 stars instead of the 3 was the writing style. It really worked for me. It was quite charming and funny and witty, and as I said, she kind of just doesn't care, and so like she like is openly talking about all of the trouble that she got in, and is like, I know that a lady shouldn't do that, and I probably shouldn't be telling you that I'm doing that, but I don't care. And so I really enjoyed that. Book number 3 of the month is going to be The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison, and I read this on the recommendation of Emma. So also I love how shiny this cover is. So I really enjoyed this. I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. And this was like a quite high of 4 star. This follows Maya, and he is half goblin. And he has basically his whole life he's spent on the outside and kind of been banished from court. And then he finds out that all his father, and who is the emperor, and all of his brothers have died. And that means that he is going to be the next emperor. And he has not been trained for this, and he has not been to court ever. And obviously he has to go and he has to deal with everyone. There's people plotting against him, there are people trying to help him, and he has to try and figure that out from each other. If you hear people talk about this, they always say like there's like nothing happening, and that is absolutely true. Like, nothing happens in this book, but so much happens because it's all very subtle. And as I said, this was a really high 4 star. I think it could have definitely gotten the 5 if, number one, I feel like about 50 pages could have been cut, because it got very repetitive in the middle for a bit. Like just a couple less pages I think would have made it like flow a little better, and I wish we had kind of a bit more development of the friendships and stuff, because we're kind of told that they're friends, and then we're told they're not friends, and then they're told like, I really wanted to see the connection between these people, because we are kind of just constantly told that he feels strongly towards them, but we're never really shown this. So it is very political, and I think something that I really liked about this is that Maya is a very sweet character. He wants to do his best for everyone, and there is people who, obviously there's people plotting against him and all this, but he just wants to do the best for every single person who's part of his empire. He doesn't want to just please the nobility. He wants to do his best for everyone, and he is not necessarily a cunning character. And I feel like a lot of time, especially in like adult fantasy, you know, the throne and all of this kind of stuff, we often see, you know, cunning, super like cutthroat characters, and that's just not Maya. That's just not him. And I think I really like that, and the people who support him because they know that he is a good person. And so like, yes, as the book goes on, we kind of see him become a little more cunning, because he has to figure out a way to please people, because he knows that if he wants to keep this, he has to please everyone. We see him get better at that, but it doesn't stop the core of his person being a very good and kind person. And I think I really enjoy that. And the people who kind of support him because they know he's good. And I think that's very nice and very sweet and kind of unique in an adult fantasy. And as I said, so I really liked his character. As I said, wish a bit more development for some of the side characters, and I also really love the world building. And as I said, the plot is very internal, because it's very much about the day-to-day running of this, learning about how this is, learning how to talk and negotiate with all of these people. And as I said, I really enjoyed that because we really focused on every single detail of it. Whereas like I feel like with a lot of like other political fantasies, it's usually, you know, there's big wars coming, and so we're just like the big picture. Whereas this is like we're kind of looking at the smaller picture. And so I really enjoy this. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to talk about one more book in depth, and that is The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik, and I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. So this is my last Naomi Novik book, and I've actually filmed ranking every single Naomi Novik book, because you know I love to do those videos. I'll leave the playlist link down below. But I then realized I have to like refilm it because I like completely messed it up. I mean I might keep the first half because I kind of split it up into like telling you what every book / series she's written is about, and then I did the ranking, and the ranking was kind of a mess because I accidentally skipped a book at one point, and then it took me ages to go back, and then I changed my mind about the ranking in the middle of it. So I'm gonna have to refilm that, so it might be a little longer before you get that, but hopefully it should be up at some time during June. So The Golden Enclaves is the third and final book in the Scalamanc's series. So this series follows Elle, and her whole life she's basically been told that she is going to be basically like an evil witch who uses her powers to take down all of the like safe places for these people in the world. And so she goes to this school because all of the magical children go to this school because it helps keep them safe from monsters. But the school is kind of broken, so monsters get in anyway, and to get out you have to go through the graduation hall, which is absolutely filled with monsters. Elle is doing her best to try and not use like this dark magic that she has an affinity towards, but she seems to have caught the attention of the school's golden boy, Orion Lake, who kind of keeps saving her life, and she is very annoyed by it. I love the series overall. I love Elle and I love Orion, and I love their dynamic particularly because Elle is like, I feel like when people say like grumpy sunshine, it's always a grumpy man and a sunshine girl, and like Elle and Orion are the complete opposite. Like Elle is grumpy and Orion is sunshine, and what can I say, I particularly enjoy that dynamic. And like I'm not even talking romantic, I mean just like friendship. Like I just love the two of them, their banter, their all of that is really it's really fun. And I think something about this series that, and I think like from the synopsis and all that, you think, oh, dark magical school, all of this stuff, but at the core of it, it is a story about friendship. And I think it's a very sweet story about friendship because Elle, as I said, she always has an affinity towards this dark magic, and people have kind of avoided her because of it. And throughout the series we see her make a lot of friends and kind of come into her own, and it's surprisingly sweet because like as I said, it is like a dark twisted school and she is very like against the world, but at the core it is a story about friendship, and it's a very sweet story. And overall I really enjoyed this final installment, and I enjoyed some of the reveals that happened because we learned more about the magic, learned a lot of stuff about the enclaves, the school, and all of that, and I loved those reveals and getting to figure out what the hell was happening there. But I do think that this is my least favourite in the series, simply because of the fact we spend a lot of the book away from the friends that we have come to like know and love throughout the series. And as I said, since that is like a core theme, I just didn't love it as much, but I still really enjoyed my time with it. I'm not going to talk about these, I'm just going to tell you what other books I read, because the vlog will be maybe the next video. It'll be either the next video or the one after that. So I read Middle Game by Shauna Maguire, then I also read The Swordsman's Lament by G.M. White, and I also read The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang, and I'm also about halfway through Knight's Shadow by Sebastian D. Castell. So yes, so those were the 7.5 books that I read in May, and as I said, I will have a video where I'm talking about these and Knight's Shadow pretty soon. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.